All right, here we go. Tonight we're looking at two stories, Ryan
Mhm.
Clark and Nolan Wells. Or are we looking at
Mm.
Nolan Wells and Ryan Clark? Either way, two stories that are very hot topics right now in the news across all social media platforms. We're going to talk about how these two stories intersect in ways that you are not going to hear on any other podcast. We're going to talk about all the things outside of what you hear and all the subjection and all that stuff. We're going to get into how these two individuals' lives are intersecting in ways that are impacting Black men in ways that you will not want to miss. Join us right now as we jump into this breaking news episode here on 4050 Social Club. Breaking news! All right, y'all, let's jump into this episode tonight. We're going to talk about these two hot topics that are all over the internet. They're blazing hot. Mississippi is burning with Nolan Wells. ESPN is burning because Ryan Clark just got fired.
Mm.
You probably are wondering, how are these two conversations even going to intermix? How are they going to coexist? And we're going to talk about that tonight, mixing them in, thinking about a couple of different things. We're going to talk about white supremacy, racism, tokenism, capitalism. We're going to talk about all these pieces tonight. And I can't help but think about how it starts with power, white supremacy. I mean, I cannot, our hearts go out to Nolan Wells and his family. Our
Yeah.
hearts go out to Ryan Clark. And we're going to talk about all that
Yes.
tonight
Yes.
as we get into this thing. What's up, y'all? What's up, 4050? Let's jump into this
Man,
thing.
man.
What are y'all thinking
Yes, sir.
about these two topics that are so hot and pervasive across the internet, social media, across the globe? What are your thoughts about these two when we talk about how they intersect in ways that people may not be thinking about?
Yeah, so I really want to start out by just saying being a father of two African American males, this has been one of the most challenging things to watch on television, on social media, on whatever you are looking at it on. It's hard to watch a family that still doesn't have answers continue to come to a podium, continue to get up and face
Yeah.
the scrutiny, continue to get up and go and actually talk to the rest of the world. It's been very difficult to understand when the lights go off from that, how they are grieving, how they are feeling. I wouldn't even want to talk to anybody. I wouldn't want to go anywhere. I wouldn't want to do anything. But I know in some ways they have to because they still are trying to get someone to tell them what happened to their son after they had allowed him to go with, his friends. So,
Yeah.
I just want to start off with that because when I think about that, that allows me to also jump to this other side. And that other side is Ryan Clark. And what I'm going to say here is almost parallel to what I just said. And that is, my heart goes out to him. My heart goes out to him because he decided that he was going to stand on business in a setting that he saw the likes of Stuart Scott, who changed the actual industry of sports and television to what we all see right now. If there was not a Stuart Scott, we are not sitting here talking about how prominent Black people are now on Sports Center. And yet and
Yeah.
still, it feels like they took him away
Hmm.
from us, his Black family. So I just wanted to start there because I think that's a parallel for me. Some might think that that's a stretch. I don't. When we talk about some of the other things that we are going to talk about today. And I want us to look at those things, look at not just how they are similar, but why in some ways it's always us and not just Black folks, but people that think that they can always get over on us.
Yeah.
No, that's real,
CJ,
man.
what you
Thank you for
thinking,
sharing
man?
that.
Yeah, that's good. That's
Yeah,
good. That's
yeah.
good.
I mean, again, there are a couple of things that come to mind. One of them was, question, you were just talking about being a parent of two boys. I don't have boys, I have girls. And for both of them, neither one of them grew up in a place that was predominantly black. I did. I grew up South Side, like that kind of thing. I knew what the rules kind of were. My kids didn't have that at all. And interestingly, when the Nolan Wells case happened, it brought back to me something that happened with us a couple springs ago. It was when our daughter, who's still in college, was going on spring break. She wanted to go to Puerto Rico for spring break with some friends, and she was going to be the only black girl there. And we ultimately let her go because we knew these girls and we kind of trusted them. But at the same time, there was just that thing, that pit that you just had in your craw, like, oh my gosh, like, what are we doing? Are we setting her up for something? This thing happened and it made me feel like we might have been playing Russian roulette with something like that. You know what I mean? So like as a parent, it really made me drill down deeper into stuff. But to come to the bigger thing, which is what do I think that parallel is between these two situations? There are a couple things. One is about like the level of authenticity you feel like you can have as a black person in these predominantly white spaces. But then the other piece that goes a little beyond that to the more threatening piece of that is like always feeling as if we as black folks are having to negotiate our humanity, right? Like that's the thing. And I feel like that's the thing that has weighed the most on me in watching both of these situations for different reasons, but it's coming down to that exact same thing. And like, why does it cost us so much, black folks so much, and why are we always having to negotiate our humanity like that? It's not just about our intelligence, our qualifications, it's about our humanity. Like, will we be believed? Will our concerns be taken seriously? In Nolan Wells' case, will his loved ones receive the benefit of the doubt, or will our loved ones receive the benefit of the doubt? If something goes wrong with these institutions that we're a part of, will they be responsible for pursuing truth the right way and with the same urgency that they would for people who don't look like us? Like, it's all those kind of things that I think have really been resonating with me as we looked at these two stories unfold.
I can't help but think about how many stories have we heard in both tracks. How many stories have we heard that end like this in the same exact way? Nolan Wells, you can keep going down, Emmett Till. I mean, it's so many stories that keep happening where the black man is basically being subjected to predominantly white group of friends, whatever the case may be, and things don't go well. Same thing with Ryan Clark, black man in a PWI, ESPN, and all of a sudden things don't go well for him. It's like, what's the other dude that got Shannon Sharp? Right, you can keep going down the list of people that have been in these roles where all of a sudden they make one wrong turn and the whole bottom falls out. Right, and now we seeing Ryan Clark on social media crying, which is embarrassing and vulnerable for him. But at the same time, this was his whole life. His whole life was centered around it.
It's not a wrong turn. I don't think it's a wrong turn. And I think that's where in some ways the parallels come in. And both of these men were being black men authentically in their own separate spaces. And we talked about that. Like, now am I being too black, right?
Well, how can you say it wasn't a wrong turn? How can you say it's not a wrong turn? This a wrong turn for Nolan Wells. He dead. You know what I'm saying? Like, to me, in that situation,
Yes, I hear what you're saying, wrong turn in that essence. And maybe we are saying in some ways the same thing. But I'm saying that they were both in their right mind being too black, right? And in Nolan's case, he was the only black person there. And we don't know what basically went on no one does. No one does but the ones that are there. But when you are the only black person there, you too black. Because if they were all white, are we having this conversation?
Come on. Let's talk about that conversation. Let's go. And then let's talk about it.
On Ryan Clark's side, he shows up authentically and is too black. Right? Going back to what I was saying before, and that is both of them, in some ways, things are not adding up. You coming back and you got his phone and you ain't said nothing about him or whatever that is, he's not here with me. You over here, you calling me in the middle of me broadcasting and you say, come in. You don't work for ESPN no more. Go back there and see if you can finish it. And think that wasn't going to blow up the same way that it would have if you let the actual news reporter go ahead and leak that you were about to get fired.
Yeah.
You see
I
what I'm
mean,
saying?
Yeah.
They would
yeah.
be,
Yeah.
these are situations I feel where we see supremacy at a height because it's telling us we are being too black.
Well, so think about what you're
Yeah.
saying there too, because this has kind of come to mind as I've been watching and just like listening to what you were saying there. And I talked about negotiating our humanity. The other piece of it, which isn't nearly that deep, but it is still deep, is the fact that you just can't get too comfortable. Like as a black
That's right.
person in predominantly white spaces, that's part of the message that you get, right? Because everything we hear about Nolan Wells is great kid. He had plenty of friends who weren't white. Like he had plenty of black
That's
friends. He
right.
hung out with everybody. It
Yeah.
just so
Yeah.
happened that
Yeah.
he went on that boat to that island with that set of people. But here was a young black man feeling like I'm that guy. People like me, I'm good. I'm comfortable enough to go out on this boat like this, feeling comfortable that I'm going to come back. Ryan Clark, it's a little bit different there. And it's interesting because you're talking about, I think before this situation happened, I always felt like he really was a real one because I felt like what I saw people at ESPN, he was willing to go to places that a lot of them were not. Like when Kyron Lacey, when that whole situation happened, he was on
Yes.
a football telecast and used his platform to address that before he got it
Yes.
even into the analysis part of it.
Yes.
Angel Reese. Like
That's
he was
right.
standing up
Yes.
for Angel Reese with this whole thing that was going on with RG3. Like he's had those things happen. So I was always like, okay, Brian, like I get it. He's doing his thing. When he got fired though, like that interview that he did on the pivot was interesting to me. That I saw a side
It
of him that I
was.
wasn't expecting to see because there was that element where you could see that he was, even though he was like too much or too black for ESPN, he was already compromising parts of himself in order to do this job that he thought he really, really wanted and that he loved. And again, that sort of surprised me in a way. And I'll say it was like slightly disappointing, but at the same time, and this is part of the conversation we were having in pre-pro, it's the conversation that we have with ourselves all the time as black men, as black people, when you're in predominantly white spaces. It is
Yeah.
always like, where is that line between showing up as my absolute authentic self and the self that I know can still get the job done here without threatening my livelihood? Like it's real. And I hate that it's like,
I love what you're saying, CJ. I know, question, you right behind me on my heels.
No, go for it, man.
I'm thinking about why does it matter? This whole white supremacy piece seems like it doesn't really matter until you got money involved. Like the intersection of white supremacy and capitalism in both situations. Like Nolan Wells definitely was family affluent enough for him to be in an environment where he was surrounded. He was on a boat, so clearly he was definitely around a level of affluence that just the regular cat ain't around. Same thing with Ryan. A level of capitalism that he was surrounded by, but both of them had a level of where white supremacy actually started to cloud their vision. Like, and they're thinking, I'm up here thinking like they just became naive, though. They're thinking that you're impenetrable. Like, what about capitalism that causes you to really think I am supreme, and this whole white construct I'm living in, I can play at that level? No, you can't. Like, those are the things that I'm thinking about. Like, how many conversations did they have with their black friends on both sides? And they was like, that ain't gonna happen to me. No, I'm cool. I can go out on that boat. I'll be cool. No, I could be my authentic self at this level. I'll be cool. And both situations end up in the same place. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, do we see, but Jay, do we see that? Do we see that? I see kids right now, a lot of them, they don't actually believe that there is this issue of race. They don't believe that.
So that's
They
the
don't
Nolan Wells of it. That
understand
ain't the Ryan Clark. That ain't the Ryan
Yeah,
Clark.
yeah,
He's an
yeah.
adult.
Yeah,
Boy.
yeah,
Yeah.
Yep. That's the, like, I see on their level some that they don't find themselves in this issue because they're growing up in a more diverse area. Okay. I'm going to say it like that. Right?
Yeah.
Where we were probably
what you mean
definitely
diverse?
segregated.
We
were
What is
segregated.
diverse?
Me being on the south side is segregated. We know it. And
it is quite homogenous.
I'm okay.
Yes.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay. I'm okay. But me, living in Evanston, or me living in a place like, I would think like Palatine or Deerfield, right? where it's kind of a
Out in the
little more of
suburbs.
in the suburbs is a mixing bowl, right? You probably not gonna interact with just one, one quote unquote race. You're gonna have a more diverse experience. And so in that
Yeah.
case, what does that even have to do with anything, right? But that, to what Chris said, that's Nolan Wells.
Yeah.
That's Nolan Wells, right? Like, it could have been where he was safe with those people because he knew them that way, right? Don't know. Don't know. What we do know is that all of the kids have vouched for each other. Even the black kids say, yeah, that he was my friend. You know what I'm saying? Those were his friends.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they said that too. So in that scenario, I'm like, I don't know. But in Ryan Clark's scenario, very much so. There's no way you can avoid that or escape it. There's a system of oppression that I feel has always been in the media space, right? Where basically you're controlling not only the headline, but you are controlling also the narrative.
All right. I
Like,
feel
think
what
about
you're
Don
saying.
Lemon.
Yeah,
Let me go there. Think about Don Lemon.
That's real.
Right?
That's real.
Think about
That's
Don
real.
Lemon.
But when you think about the amount of time that each one of them were in that environment, all right, Nolan Wells, what was it, like 19, something like that? Like, Ryan Clark has been in that environment, grew up playing football, all that, at a high level. 11 years, he was commentating, 12 years. They probably have similar age in those environments. I see the parallels, right? So when you're in those environments for that amount of time, you feel that you have a level of privilege, protection, and direction and connection with folks that won't allow you to get penetrated in that way. Like I feel like you start to reach a point where you're like, I'm cool to go out of this boat. With these people, but us on the outside looking in that we are not in that environment for the amount of time that Nolan was and Ryan are. We like, what you doing getting on the boat with all them white folks? Like, what are you doing? But because they've been in it for the amount of time that they have, they're like, we cool until you not.
Until
you get around the
what's
wrong
interesting
person
too.
that's willing to change that. Yeah, go ahead.
That's big.
Yeah.
That's big. I'm just saying,
I was just going to talk
I was
about.
disagreeing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was just going to talk about too what you're because again, I still see where those differences are in there for the two of them. Again, Ryan Clark is still an adult. He grew up, and you can tell by the way he rides harder than most of the people at ESPN. You can tell that he didn't have that same illusion of inclusion that I could see somebody potentially like Nolan Wells having. Like, I work around high school kids. And you can tell that the world that they grow up in, it is a lot more diverse than the world that I grew up in. There's a lot more interacting and mixing between people of different races, different cultures, different everything, you name it. That for them, they'll hear us talk about things and feel like, yeah, that's the world you lived in, not the one that I live in. And we always say as adults, you know how it is, because it was like this when the other generation was talking to us about stepping lightly into these spaces that we were treading in. And they would always look at us like, yeah, I know you don't feel like you need it, but you need to have this armor because the day is going to come where somebody's going to call you out your name. And when that happens, you need to know and you need to be prepared for that. So I have felt as an adult, us trying to equip kids with that. But at the same time, they get to define their own lives, right? So again, that whole thing, the illusion of inclusion, I can see where he really had that level of comfort, like, hey, I'm going to be okay doing this until it doesn't happen. And I feel bad because I know that there's some people who've been on him. They've been on his parents. Like, how would you let him do this? As a parent, I get it. I understand. Like, hey, you can give people all the warnings in the world. He was going to do what he wanted to do. You know, he felt like he was a grown up. He had forged these relationships. It's just hard for us to feel like you can absolutely trust those because at the end of the day, you are not them. And that's a hard thing, I think, for a lot of kids to deal with.
Listen, in a lot of ways, there's a stigma, and in a lot of ways, we know there's not. There's no falsity when it comes to understanding how things have gone in Mississippi. There are people that I know to this day that live in Mississippi and will continue to tell you about it. And they are 40 and 50 right now, still living in Mississippi. I have Masonic brothers that are living in Mississippi, and I see them all the time. And they are telling me still about some of the things that happened that they are like, what? Like, so I don't think it's false, but I do think sometimes it could possibly potentially in some ways be exaggerated. I don't think this is one of those times, especially with the information that we know. right?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
the truths of the matter. I'm not coming back without my phone. So how you got my phone and not me? Like
Right.
that's number one.
Right.
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 So I don't really
Yeah,
even
yeah.
need to go too many other places but there, you know, to say
Yeah.
anything else. Like if
Yeah.
it's not
And that's just
suspicious
one
from
thing.
that point,
That's just one
right?
of
That's
many.
just
Like,
one
Yeah.
thing.
yes,
That's just one thing.
yes.
Yeah.
But if it's
yeah,
not just suspicious from that point, then what?
yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it's
I'm
an
It's the
just
same
overall
glad.
lack
thing.
of
Yeah.
transparency. You know,
It's
it's
a
an
Yes.
lack of
overall lack of
transparency across
transparency
the
about all
board.
this too. Yeah.
It's a
Like
lack of
jumping to a
transparency.
conclusion about what happened to him, saying that it was an accidental drowning, and like jumping to that conclusion early when you definitely didn't have enough information to be able to say something like that. And it's the thing that kind of freaks me out about it too. Like this has become a national story to see the way that the authorities are acting there. Though again, I don't know what the truth is. I know what my spidey senses are telling me, and I don't want that to
Yeah.
be true. Like I hope they do a thorough investigation. They realize, you know what, it was an accidental drown. I hope that that's what they come back with, because then you can say, you know what, there were no bad actors here. That's not what it looks like. And I'm tired of people trying to say to us, oh, ignore what you see because it doesn't mean what you think it means. What am I supposed to think? Right? Like the state of Mississippi,
Yeah.
what's the thing? It's, I don't even know what the percentage was, but it was like looking at the number of lynchings that happened over a particular period over the 1800s, early 1900s. Mississippi was where most of those were happening, like the largest
Yeah,
percentage of that
definitely.
happening. We remember you brought up
And-
Emmett Till before, like there's Medgar Evers, there's stuff that happens. So suddenly you jump into
the three
2026
other
and this
black
happens.
boys.
Right. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And so it's like this machine has started to work in a way that's controlling this narrative and trying to paint something. And you look and say, wow, maybe in a local context, this is just something that people expect and something that they accept here. But now that it's become a national story, people are looking at it from the outside like, that ain't right. You know, we deserve more than what you're giving us. And you can't look at us and tell us that we shouldn't question anything when there's so many holes in the story. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
many
Yeah.
holes in both of those stories. I
In
look at
both the
Ryan Clark
stories. That's
and
what I
I
was
say
about
to
to say
myself,
too.
I just say I saw him on the pivot and I watched him on the pivot a lot, you know, and I understood him being vulnerable in this space, and I appreciate it because he is. And we can hear Ryan Clark on the pivot, right? You can feel who he is,
Yeah,
right?
you can.
And
Yeah, you
Yeah.
Chris, what you said was, I understood that he was automatically like this because of how he always speaks. And he is no different when he is on the NFL, sitting there with them, talking whatever he's saying, than he is on the pivot.
Well,
On
let
the
me
pivot.
ask you this, though. Let me ask you this. Stephen A. does that all the time. Stephen A. will combat white, black, green, yellow. He don't care. And he can get away with that on ESPN. But in this
Because Stephen
situation,
A.
Ryan Clark said what he said, and the dude was like, hold on, man. You ain't gonna come for me like that. And then 5 seconds later, go pack your bags. Right? Like,
Yeah.
what's up with that?
is actors.
Go into that. What you mean?
We know that there are individuals. I used to be a total fan of Stephen A. Smith, and I started listening to him more and more on his own show, talk about his stance about certain things, how he feels about black women, not all of them, and not all of them in a certain manner, but how he talks about some of them. And in a lot of ways, that's turned me off personally from allowing myself to understand that you are not the one that possibly or potentially should have been fired for some of the things that you may have said, right? But I know for certain when I listen to Ryan Clark, it's not the fact that he's not saying those things. It's the fact that he's saying the things against the corporations, the systems, you know, the injustices. He's not saying, you know, don't like Caitlin Clark. He's saying, look at what's happening right now to Angel Reese. And people are not understanding that. And so when I see that people come back and say, but you're saying this about Caitlin Clark. No, he didn't say anything. So that's where I see things being different, right? I see that there is a level of power and structure. And if somebody wants to go ahead and say, I want to stay in this position for as long as I can because I see myself growing and you're going to allow me to grow because I'm going to write myself off to you and you know where I am. Hey, that's what it's going to be. If that's what it's going to be, right? But Ryan Clark said no. He said no.
He said no,
Would you
but
not?
then,
Would you? I
but
turn it like this because this
listen,
is my segment to turn this like this to you and this for you, Jay. Put yourself in his shoes. Put yourself in his shoes
come on,
right
man.
now. Put yourself in
Yeah,
his shoes right now. Right
yeah.
now. Put yourself in Ryan Clark's shoes. You
If I,
hear
if I, yeah,
somebody, not
I,
even white. You
yeah,
hear Chris saying something bad
sure.
about how your wife is performing
Yeah,
as far as
yeah,
her business and stuff like that is concerned, and you know your wife's business and you know how she's performing, you not gonna say nothing?
absolutely.
Come on.
Absolutely,
Come
absolutely,
on.
absolutely, absolutely. I would, absolutely. I mean, honestly, man, I've thought about Ryan Clark and the whole situation. I feel for the brother in multiple ways. I feel like when you reach that point where he was at, you're constantly tiptoeing. You're constantly tiptoeing on either side of blackness or whiteness. And it's like if you lean too much to one side, you a simp or you a token. If you lean too much to the other side, you Tupac. So it's like, how it just to be able to balance your blackness and your whiteness is a full-time
Mm.
job.
Yeah.
It's a
Mm.
full-time job with no
Yeah.
roadmap. Not a lot of people have gotten it right. And for those that have gotten it right, people can say certain things about them. Well, Michael Jordan didn't get it right. Well, look at Michael Jordan. He's not the most social cat, but the dude is a multi-billionaire, right? So it's like, which side of it do you want to play on? And I feel like that's the part that Ryan has yet to figure out. I think it's very interesting that his podcast is called Pivot, because
Mm.
now he is going to be at that intersection where he has to pivot
And he
because,
gonna
Yeah.
do it.
and he's going to
Yeah.
do it. And like,
He
I
gonna
feel
do it.
like he's done a good job of being able to allow the ESPN engine fuel his exit.
Mm-hmm.
A lot
Mm.
of people don't have
I
that.
can see that. Yeah,
You
you're
know what I'm
right.
Mm.
saying?
Mm.
Like, I'm
You're right.
thinking
Yeah.
about what happened for me. Similar situation. I wasn't no Ryan Clark, but I was in a white institution, and just when I thought everything was cool, I walked into a meeting and I got fired. Right? And
Wow.
it's like,
Wow.
bye. Thank you for your services. And I had to walk home. I
Mm.
didn't have no pivot podcast that was going to be able to support me in ways that I could still sit up and be like, I'm here, y'all.
Yeah.
So when I'm able to look at it at a different level, I'm like, man, this could happen to any of us.
It can. And
Yeah.
It could happen to any of us.
and we gotta understand, like we were saying, you gonna stand on it or no?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Right.
and in that we understand there may be a struggle. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll put it
Yeah.
to you like this. Ryan Clark called for the community right now, I'm going. If
Mm.
somebody down the street right now call for the community, I'm going. It's no
Yeah.
difference to me. I told my intern the other day, because she's a little scared about her final presentation. I said
Mhm.
to her, you worried about the CIO being in there with you when you speaking, but you got to understand his problems are not so much your problems, but they're the same problems, and that's being human.
Mm.
I said, so when you go into
Mm.
this room, you need to understand that he is the same person you are. You speaking to a peer, because when he leaves from here, he's going to have to look at some of the same scenarios of being human that you do.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it is no different here.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to pivot in some ways regardless. So if
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the case, and I gotta stand on this business so that you understand that I mean business, then we about to pivot.
Mm.
Yeah.
And I'm
Yeah.
about to stand on this business, and I'm hoping my community understands that I didn't do this out of just let me be the black righteousness that you need right now. But
Yeah.
for them to understand that if I do not do this, I am going to become a person that you are going to think was never for us. And when I say for us, I mean just for humanity, not just
Yeah.
for black, but for human, like standing for what is humane.
Yeah.
Mm.
You're
Yeah.
not gonna
Yeah.
believe me.
Yeah.
You're not gonna believe me. You're not
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to side with me. You're going to
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
that I am that simp. You are going to think that I am an Uncle Tom in some ways,
Mm.
because
Mm.
it was a simple principle. It was, are you going to be human in this moment where they're telling you not to be?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Man, there's so many things in that. And the first one that comes to mind is the idea of seeing what this has done for Ryan Clark, right? And I think I'm coming back to what you were talking about too, Jay, because you mentioned in question, you were kind of hinting around this too, the idea of having an exit strategy. Sure, he loved his job on First Take at ESPN, like doing all the stuff that he was doing. And he was willing to compromise parts of himself for it, but he had a line he wasn't going to cross. That was it. But he also had that exit strategy. He had an exit.
Yeah.
It fell through, but he's got his own platform. Cam Newton just got fired too. Guess what though? He's got his own platform. When we get frustrated about being in spaces where we don't hold the power, you know what that means? Like when you don't hold the power, you don't get to define the rules of engagement. Because they have their own things on their own platforms, they can now do that, right? Like they can do it. Think about Pat McAfee. Part of the reason all this happened is because now he's going to be making, $60 million a year? Because he's working through ESPN, but he's got his own platform. Like he owns that himself, and he is a commodity that they need. They see Stephen A like that, right? Like he's getting paid for this, but he has his own platform, should he? And so when I think about that, what we're trying to build an exit strategy. We are trying to build that place or build enough space in our life, enough resources in our lives that we don't need to be beholden to any of this other stuff. And we can show up where we want to as authentically as we need to without negotiating a damn thing. But we're just not there yet, you know?
Man, it's important that you say exit strategy because Nolan Wells didn't have one.
I was going to say that.
If we only knew what was happening up to that point, if we only understood if there was an exit strategy for this young man, maybe we would have been able to have someone there to save his life. If we would have known that no one there was going to side with humanity. I just want you to understand that. The boy said there was 20 people around. He said there was 20 people there. There was at least 8 people on the boat. And you gonna tell me no one sided with humanity?
Yeah.
There was no exit strategy for this man. Yeah. Just like there was no exit strategy for us that don't have that platform like you all are saying that Ryan Clark and others have. There's no exit strategy. So there's only a certain amount of I can give to you at that point over here. When I look at it over here and I see it's a little different.
Yeah, it is. It is. And I think, you know, this is, I love how we're weaving these two together. And I know someone may say, well, how y'all putting them two together? This dude is no longer here. And I get it. At the same time, it's what can we learn from both of these situations, especially as Black fathers, as Black mothers. You know, how do we make sure that we're instilling exit strategies into our children so that they're not ending up in these situations? And I think that's the thing that we want you all to take from this. You know, we understand that, hey, you may be that child that's in the suburbs and you're surrounded by in a PWI, but are you giving yourself exit strategy so that you're not ending up like Nolan? Are you teaching your children so that they're not ending up like Nolan? Like, I'm so happy and proud that my daughter wants to go to a HBCU because she's creating exit strategies, but yes, she's interning at these environments where she's surrounded by PWI. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like making sure that you're creating balance so that you're having exit strategies, I think is what's important for us as parents so that our children can have an opportunity, man. Like, you know, I hate what happened to Nolan, but I also hate what happened to Ryan, you know? And so how do we look at it from both sides?
Well, and so I'm gonna go a step further than what you just said too, because you were talking about us as parents and what we need to do for our kids. Let's not forget Ryan. Again, Ryan is a parent, but he is a professional and had this happen to him. I think that's something we can also do for ourselves. Like the idea of, yes, we teach that generation coming up, put yourself in a position where you have exit strategies. I'm 54. I don't have an exit strategy, but I can be creating one. So what can we start to do now? What can we started to have done yesterday? What can we do tomorrow? But what can we do now to start building this for ourselves? And think about the lesson that winds up giving to your seeds coming up. Yeah, you're trying to instill this in them to do it, but if they see you doing it, if you're modeling that, that's the biggest thing that you can probably do to really, really show them what it's about. It's one thing for them to try to conceive of what it is you're telling them without them having a model of it. If you can point to somebody, great. But if they can point to somebody in the home, if they can point to someone in their family who's doing that, that's all the better. So it's not too late for us to do that. And again, I think it gives me more inspiration to dive even deeper into what we're doing now and to have this thing become what I think it could ultimately become, because we can then just live in that space where we can just be who we are and not not have to worry about it. But you have to own the
Yeah.
keys. You got to own the keys to the kingdom.
Here's some really good takeaways. Number one, everyone needs to be in the community of each other so that they always know where one person is. If it's a air tag, if it's sharing your location, something to that nature, have that person that you can trust, that you can actually give your location to, regardless of if you are with all white friends, all black friends. Who cares what friends? Who cares what the scenario is? Someone should
Yeah.
know where you all are at all times. And to go a step further than that, trust somebody to understand exactly where you are. And I know the ones of you that are 40 and 50, when we was probably 20 and 30, you know exactly what I mean, because there was some times that I may have ended up somewhere and no one knew where I was, and that probably wasn't the smartest.
Yeah.
Another thing on the other side of this is work backwards. Understand that when you get that job, there may come a time where you won't have that job, whether it will be being fired or being let go, or walking out on your own terms, negotiating your head before you even get the job, what your exit strategy might be. And those things that you are going to stand on business about. That is very, very key. And the last one that I'm going to give right now is understand your support system. If you don't have a support system, even at 40 and 50, you need a support system. You need individuals that when something happens or something goes down, you need individuals that will be there and that will be able to support you in the time of need. So those are just some things that you can take away from this episode of Breaking News. We're talking about Ryan Clark. We're talking about Nolan Wells. Rest in peace, Nolan Wells. We love you. We love you as a black male to another black male, as a black man to another black father, to another black mother. We love you all. Our hearts go out to you all for your son.
Yeah.
Amen.
For sure.
Absolutely.
For sure. Well, thank you all again for another epic episode of 4050 Social Club. Take some of these nuggets. We know that this breaking news is still evolving on multiple levels, so I'm sure we'll be back again to talk about the next iteration of it. But understand how all these things are constantly working for us and against us at the same time. We've talked about white supremacy. We've talked about power, racism. We've talked about tokenism. All these elements are constantly evolving, and we can have an impact on how it impacts our family, ourselves, and those that we're building legacy for. So we look forward to seeing y'all on the next one. Until then, peace.